What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mythic Conversations. Apparently, the only Legion show this entire week that doesn't feature Corn Boy. No one gave me the memo. Nobody told me that it was Corn Boy week this week. He's been on every show. He was on, Mr. Allen's show recently. He was on Legion's Lounge on Monday. And then he was on Legion's Lair last night. All great shows. You should definitely check them out. Kind of dropped a little bit of secrets. But nobody told me it was Corn Boy week. So I don't have Corn Boy, but that's okay because I'm super excited. I have another guest tonight that I'm really excited to have a conversation with. Before I bring him in, before we get to that, let me do the intro and run through the news. Welcome to Mythic Conversations. I'm your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer. I also have the distinct privilege of being the director of sales and marketing for Four Horsemen Studios. That means that all the content that you see at sourcehorseman.com, the official website, is content that I help to bring you. If you want to see more of my stuff and my work, you can absolutely do so at Mythic Customs on Instagram, all one word. Best place to see the work that I post. Of course, I'm also here every single Wednesday night doing this show live. Talk about all things Legions. The last few weeks, we've been very, very focused on Cosmic Legions. Last week, I went off script a little bit, did some other stuff. But Cosmic Legions, that's obviously been the biggest thing in the world of Legions for the last month. The Cosmic Legions Volcatar Book 2 Grave Knight pre-order ended this past Sunday. Thank you on behalf of everyone at Four Horsemen Studios. Thank you to everyone that got behind that wave, that backed it. It's a really cool little wave, but people came out in force for that. I'll talk to my guest about that wave and his thoughts on it shortly. Obviously, if you missed that wave, it is now available for pre-order from Four Horsemen Studios retailers. So if you grabbed some from Store Horseman and maybe you want some others, obviously one of the advantages of the retailers, while you pay a little bit more, you don't pay at time of order. At least most of them don't. You pay a small deposit, if any. So there's some convenience there if you want to, balance how you order. But those are available now if you didn't get your fill in the Store Horseman pre-order. This past Saturday, we also had a huge one-year anniversary sale from Legion Shop. Thank you to everyone that supported that. You literally made it our biggest sale we've ever done, which is appropriate, right? It was our one-year anniversary sale. You came out in force. I think we had some great pieces. I'm already seeing people post that they got theirs in. We worked really hard all weekend to not only take those orders in, but to get them out to you. People have them showing up now. If you place an order and it's not in hand yet, it is on the way. It should be there very, very soon. Still got tons of cool stuff available at Legion Shop in stock. And I'll give you a little secret. We've got a lot of cool stuff happening. I've been talking to a lot of new artists, new sculptors, new painters, new creators, you name it. We've got a ton of cool stuff. We're not slowing down in year 2. A lot of great stuff that we are going to be bringing to you. So if Legion Shop is your source for all things Legions, like it says right on the website, you're going to be very excited. Those are the big news, at least that's the news that I can share with you right now. So I'm going to go right in to bringing in my guest. This is a guy who I've met a couple of times. Met him for the first time last year, actually at LegionsCon in November. Really been impressed with some of the work he's been doing. And when I realized he's so new to the Legions community, I said, you know what? I want to bring him on. I want to talk to this guy because someone that gets this heavy into Legions that quickly, someone that gets, this heavy into the customizing is doing cool stuff. I want to bring him in for that conversation. Jesse Arnold, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me. I am really stoked to be here tonight.
Very cool. So I gave a little bit of an intro into, you and your journey into Legions, but for people that may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about kind of your background, not necessarily how you got into Legions. We'll get to that in a minute, but give us a moment to introduce yourself and where people may be seeing you.
Yeah, I'm in the Cabal, probably a lot more heavily the last couple months now that I finally started getting into the customizing I've been wanting to do. Really enjoying the community in there. And then I'm on Instagram at just.shelve.it, just shelve it on Instagram. Yep. I do usually the same post between both places, so it's not a lot of new stuff there, but and I do have a YouTube channel that I don't use a whole lot at the moment. I've just been so busy with work, I haven't been able to keep up with it. And all the great Mythic shows are already going, so I don't know, other than joining in and talking like this, I don't know what else I could add to it at the moment. So, yeah, I've been a fan of toys and collectibles all my life, yeah, I've customized a couple things here and there outside of Mythics before I got into that line. And then when I finally realized how modular and all that stuff was, it even took me a couple figures in to realize what all that stuff was, and I'm still figuring it out. It just made it so much more fun to turn it into a hobby and not just a collection.
And now you got into Legions in large part because of your friend Sean, and now I know you are a Masters of the Universe fan. You, Sean, and another friend of yours, Matt, you do another podcast together around Motu, correct?
Yes. Matt Duch and Sean Scavarna, they do Legends of Grayskull podcast. They've been doing that for a while now. I know they've got tons of episodes. And then at one point, I think a year or so ago, they asked me to join in for their Off-Worlds, where they talk about stuff that's not Masters of the Universe focused. So movies, comic shows, whatever it is, we get into it. So yeah, they're a lot more heavily into the He-Man and Master stuff than I am. I grew up with it. I love the current line of figures. I loved Revelation. Enjoyed the first season of the CG show. I haven't checked out season 2 yet, but I enjoyed that as well. But they are all in. I could have like a 15-minute conversation before they were too deep for me to keep up in Master stuff. But
it's funny. So I think I kind of scared Matt away a little bit at one point because there was a point, and I don't know if it was, because I know he knows, Lord Steven and My Wife Is Going to Kill Me guys. I don't know if it was on that show or if it was a comment somewhere, but there was a point that he had said something about he had a hard time getting into Legions because he's a lore guy and he really needs a story, and Legions doesn't have a story. And that's not the first time I've heard that comment. So I had done a Mythic Conversations episode, one of my, most well-received episodes, where I really went into all the lore and I covered, because it hasn't been presented in a linear fashion. So I kind of tried to break it down in a linear fashion. And I didn't call Matt out by name, but I said that, someone recently had said this and everything, and he knew it was him. So I think I kind of scared him away a little bit because he was like, oh no, I didn't realize, but it was kind of funny. I've talked to Matt a few times. I've talked to Sean a number of times. I got to hang out with Sean at Intern for a day, a couple months ago. All super, super cool people. So they introduced you to Mythic Legions. About how long ago was that?
Well, I actually got into, I stumbled across Thistlethorn during, somewhere during 2020. I think I saw him on Big Bad Toy Store, maybe early 2021. And I was like, that guy's really cool. He's green. I can't really jump into this whole other line of stuff because I do Black Series and the Transport, like so many different lines. And I was like, but he's green and he's a critter, and I'm all into that, and I'll get him. I was debating like Calros and a couple of the other ones, but I'm like, I got to go for Thistlethorn. So I got him last St. Patrick's Day, so just over a year ago.
Right.
And then Sean was getting into him. He had some stuff because of the Masters, like the homage tributes,
Sure.
the PowerCon debut or whatever the
we always call them PowerCon debut figures.
Yeah.
That's us kind of like working around calling them what everyone else calls them.
Yeah.
Like, we never call them Motu tributes.
Right.
We're like, oh yeah, they're the PowerCon debut figure.
So he had a couple. I think he won an Ice Troll, I think from Cullen, one of Cullen's wheels. And he was talking about like the shows and the Cabal and all this stuff. And I was like off Facebook. I used it pretty much to only post like for the comic shop or for family messages. I was just kind of done with the Facebook side of stuff. And so we got into him, I guess, around the same time, but he talked about the Four Horsemen in there because Sean loves and Matt does too, the 2000X He-Man. And he talked about how Four Horsemen did those.
Yep.
I had the Sorceress Staticon or whatever they called it.
Action figure.
Staction, yeah.
Yep.
I think I gave that to Sean. And I kind of regret that now. No. But I didn't know who the Horsemen were. Obviously, I had some Spawn stuff in the 90s. So like I didn't know who this stuff was. And then we talked about going to LegionsCon, and he had traded me a couple figures, or I bought some off from him. And someone in the Cabal was selling stuff. And I got the Milena figure because I like the female characters. I just always have.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I'll grab that. That seemed like a decent price. So she, I think, was my second official figure.
Okay.
And then some stuff from him. And then right before going to LegionsCon, I got a couple eBay things. I was like, I should have just saved my money for LegionsCon. And then LegionsCon blew my mind. I mean, your table at the Four Horsemen table at the ToyCon New Jersey on Saturday I got stuff. Like I finally got some orcs. I got 2 Vorthogs and Balius, and I was excited. I was like, all right, cool, I got some of this stuff. And then when I walked into the LegionsCon side on Sunday morning, like it was almost overwhelming, like just because I've never experienced a toy line or really anything that had that much collaboration and just people showing stuff off. It blew my mind I keep saying that, how many people were just showing off stuff and not just like, hey, buy this. It wasn't, I'm used to Comic Cons where you walk through the artist alley and everybody's like making the sad eyes at you. You're like, please buy my comic. They just wanted to show their stuff off. And it was so cool.
It's
it was
funny.
a lot of
George from the studio. Last year's LegionsCon was his first time at LegionsCon as well. And he said something similar. There was a point that he was walking around and he looked dumbfounded. And I was like, what's wrong? And he said, I don't understand this show. I said, what do you mean? And he said, there are these tables full of amazing stuff and they're not selling them. And, I laughed because he, like you, is used to shows where it's all about the selling part. It's all about the moving product. And that's what I said to him. I said, LegionsCon is unique in the fact that it's part toy show, part art exhibit. Many of the tables are a combination of both. They are people that are, exhibiting their work for fellow fans, and they may have a handful of things for sale. But there were plenty of tables there, you're right, that were just amazing stuff with nothing for sale. So it is a very different vibe. And I mean, I've heard this from a number of people, the community aspect of being in a room like that, where there are all these people doing add-on parts and customizing and remixing the toy line, and the creators are not only in the room, but are like super excited for it. Like, I mean, Eric walking around and seeing this stuff and like getting genuinely excited for how fans have taken these and remixed them and stuff. That is unique in the toy industry. And it's super cool to be a part of. I can only imagine as a new collector what just an overwhelming experience that must have been.
Yeah, because my coworker at the comic shop, my part-time job, Douglas, who's in the Cabal as well. I got to give a shout out to him. He's holding down the fort so I could leave early tonight. So
Thank you,
Douglas,
Douglas.
thank you for letting me do this. I hope it's not too crazy in there because it is New Comic Book Day. But he and I started talking because he was in already, and I knew we had some like other toy lines that we were into. So he was talking about stuff. So I learned about like Nikki Nicole from him and some other stuff. Some of the Sean hasn't gotten into the customizing as much as the pop and swaps, but Douglas is because he likes to paint, so he's been doing some, and that's what really turned me on to that side of it before I even got to LegionsCon. But I didn't know anybody's name. Like they're like, oh, they're doing this Sir Gerard figure, and I was like, I have no idea who that is. And he's like, oh, he does all the the website stuff. I was like, oh, cool. And then I met you. We were really cool. And then I got into the Cabal shortly after. I was like, oh, that's who all these people like. It all made sense.
Sure.
And he was talking about my wife is going to kill me, guys, and like all that stuff. And I was like, I have no idea who you're talking about. Like,
Right.
These are all names. It's like a new comic series that I don't know who any of them are. I just know they're all involved. But yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun coming in and just seeing all the different talent. I think it was Eric Miller had the turtle customs.
Yeah.
And like the Frankenberry and all that stuff, and of course Nikki with her table of stuff. I got some stuff from her. I got my first or second custom pre-painted head from you.
Yeah, and
the Kitsune.
You know what? On that note, because we are going to talk about customizing. You have jumped into the customizing side of this as well. So this is one. So you picked up this Kitsune head at LegionsCon, and I oddly enough remember selling it to you, and then you went back and you made this full custom out of it.
Yep. Initially, I found a Ragna at one of the tables out in the Toy Con side. I was like, oh, cool. It's a female dwarf body. I'm going to put the fox head on her.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know about the tail hole in the back and all the 2.0 or most of the 2.0s until like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
So I didn't look for a tail there when I was at the table. But then I was like, I'll just use the Skeleton 2 body, the female, and that's where this custom came from.
Okay.
Is from a Skeleton 2 body with goblin legs and the Kitsune head that I made a small alteration to your original paint job in the eyes.
Absolutely fine. So I love the fact that you're at LegionsCon and Sean was more into the line. So Sean knew who people were, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're at a show where all of the biggest names in the Legions community are there and you don't know who anybody is. So you got to experience it just for like in its purest form. Like you got to experience it and just enjoy it for exactly what it was and be excited that this table had cool stuff, not that, oh, well, she's this person or he's this person and I've got to go see them because they're one of the premier customizers or anything silly like that. So that's a really cool experience. And you've told me that when you got out of LegionsCon, that's really when the bug bit you big time. And I have to imagine that it wasn't only because of the quality of the toys, but seeing that community and seeing the welcoming nature of everything. That, as a longtime toy collector myself, that's going to be darn refreshing.
It was. I mean, Sean and I talked about it the whole drive back. It was like a 3-hour drive from New Jersey back to where we live in Pennsylvania here. But like Douglas, he was there too, so we bumped into. So it was like, okay, I know him, and then I knew Sean knew people because of all this stuff.
Yeah,
I was like, just the community aspect of it was really cool. And other than coworkers and friends, I haven't had that kind of a community so focused into a thing that everybody likes, that's not just general geek culture stuff, you know? So yeah, that really got me, and that's what got me into the Cabal. When I came back, I was like, all right, I want to be a part of this. I want to see what more people are doing, and eventually have a place to show off some of the stuff I do when I get to it. And yeah, like the community, like I've been thinking all week that I was like, this is my cheers, going into the Cabal.
It is.
I was like, maybe not everybody knows my name, but like, it's fun going in, people commenting and seeing stuff, commenting on stuff other people do. It's so fun and refreshing. Just how supportive and encouraging the whole group is about this stuff.
Oh, without a doubt. It's a funny analogy to make to chairs, but I think it's a poignant one. I know that I will see custom work by different people, and people have a certain style. So you get to a point that almost as you're scrolling, you see new photos, and you can, oftentimes just who it is before you even read the name.
Yeah, yeah.
But then also being surprised. I mean, Lord Stephen and I talk all the time because we've been doing this for so long. We feel like we really paid our dues, and we had to really hone our skills. I see new people come in frequently these days that they're like, "Oh, this is the first custom I ever painted," and I'm like, "You son of a bitch!" There you go, Curtis. I dropped another bad word on my show. You son of a gun. That is awesome. That is an incredibly cool piece. I feel like, quality breeds quality, and people get into this community, and it's so creative and so, inspiring that even though they may be doing it for the first time, between all the tutorials that are available and all of the information, it's absolutely incredible to get them to a really great point pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I came into this, like my customizing before, like I said, I did a couple Marvel Legends. I was going to do some Star Wars. And every time I got the pieces or a 3D printed head to make a Star Wars one, Hasbro would announce it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend the time on that because theirs is going to look better. And D&D miniatures. Yep. So working on really small scale. Yep. So like, so I've watched some of your tutorials. I think I've checked out a couple other things. But yeah, it's just really cool to see it, and then just seeing what other people do, like, gives inspiration, even if you don't do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
One of the helmets I got I think I got it from Wolf King. It was a skeleton head with like the kind of conical hat with the cross coming down as the nose guard.
Yep.
I painted up, did it all detailed, and then someone else did it around the same time, and they posted it, and I was like, I didn't know that thing had a chin strap. I didn't notice. I thought that was like some sort of like ligaments or some sort of like something on the. I'm like, I didn't see it on the thing in my hand, and then I saw this picture. I can't remember who did it, and I went back. I looked at mine. I was like, oh my gosh! I got my paint out and I painted the strap in.
I've done the same thing where you're looking at it and you miss a detail and you see someone else do it, and you're like, what I love about the customizing aspect, and we're going to dive into that shortly, but it's so different because, I mean, look, action figure customizing is certainly not unique to Legions, but you just touched on something that I think is really interesting, where you said, Hasbro with Marvel Legends or whatever, if you make a custom, they're probably going to do that character down the road and it'll be better. And that, I think, is at the core of what's different between Legion's customizing and everything else. When I see people doing other customs, they're creating characters that exist. A new version of Wolverine or Spider-Man, or some deep cut character from, some second long scene in Star Wars or whatever. With Mythic Legions, people are creating brand new characters, brand new ideas, and even though some people, may do Warduke or Conan or, a character that does exist in some other, media, by and large, Mythic Legions customizing is about just creating cool original characters. That is super unique.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things after I started getting parts, I was like, wait, because I also like to write. I haven't published anything officially, but I have a fantasy story I wrote a couple years ago. I'm in the process of editing, and I was like, wait, I can make some of these figures with customs from Mythic Legions figures. So one of the dwarfs I did is based on one of my characters. I was like, wait,
That's awesome.
that head's awesome from. I don't know if that was from Toy Forge. It was the one with the skull cap and the braids and the beard. Yep. I was like, I can make my Ragnar Bluebeard, from my story, and then I'm working on getting some parts from Save Diamond Planetary Dogs that should be shipping. I think I got the notice today to do the female character from that. Yeah, there he is.
Yep.
Rocking a Spawn shield and some Anthony Houseel stuff.
Yep. So it's got a Toy Forge axe there. So that head, that is actually sculpted by Emil Wickman, and that was a Legion shop piece.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, so that's the king in my, or chief king in my dwarves in my one story. And I've switched his loin piece out with something different at this point. But yeah, that's I was like, wow, that axe goes great with him. That totally feels like how I pictured him in toy form. So and then just completely new stuff that's not related to anything, but not making my own characters from my stories, but like making more characters in the world of Mythos, and all of that has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and again, that's what I think is so much fun and so unique about this. Whether people are making customs of their Dungeons and Dragons character, or just things that they think are cool, it fosters so much creativity.
Yeah.
One piece of information I want to drop, Jesse, because we're talking about LegionsCon, obviously I expect that you are planning on attending this year's LegionsCon in November.
Absolutely.
So November 5th and 6th, letting everybody know tickets for LegionsCon go on sale tomorrow. So tomorrow is May 5th, which is, crazy as this sounds, 6 months away from day one of LegionsCon. We're halfway there, everybody. Like, it happens once a year. 6 months mean we're halfway there. So I said previously that, May is going to be a big month. We're going to start to put our foot on the gas. We're going to start to reveal some stuff. Super excited. So tomorrow, tickets, and just so everyone knows, you don't have to pre-buy tickets. If you pre-buy tickets, some people just want to secure them. They will be available at legionscon.com. The ticket processor we're using is Eventbrite, so they are $25 for both days. So it's not a Saturday and Sunday ticket. It's just a whole weekend ticket. Whether you can go for one day or both days, it's one price, $25. If you do go through Eventbrite, there are taxes and fees you have to pay that we don't have any control over. But that will be available tomorrow. We do totally anticipate that we will have them at the door. We're not going to sell out online, but if you want to get yours early, starting tomorrow, you can do so.
That is awesome, and that's an awesome price for 2 days of the glory that LegionsCon is going to be.
I love hearing you say that, because I was talking to my partner Joe today about it, and when people give us the feedback about LegionsCon and how exciting it is, I got to be honest with you. I sit there and I go, we've only executed on about 20% of what we want to do. Like, it feels like the last few years, forget about the first year, which was, a meetup. It was, we didn't know what to expect. Then we had the whole COVID year where we had to go virtual. Last year was so much fun, but we couldn't get into the room that we were in on the Saturday because they do bingo in that room on Saturdays. So that's why we only did it. You know, we were like, okay, well, everyone can come to ToyCon, hang out, then we'll do LegionsCon on Sunday. But by doing that, it prevented us from having extra rooms to do like breakout sessions and all that. So I am so excited for this year because some of the stuff when that first year of LegionsCon, after the show was done, a bunch of us went across the street to like some bar and grill. It might have been an Outback Steakhouse or something. But Joe and I were sitting there. We were having a beer and we were talking about the future. And some of the stuff we talked about breakout sessions, you know, about show, you know, version figures, all these things, everything's coming to fruition this year. Like this feels like the first year that we're really getting to do what we want. And appropriately so, it's the fourth year. So Four Horsemen, year 4. It's going to be something special.
That's awesome. I can't wait. Yeah, and that's like I've been to Baltimore Comic Con a bunch of times and smaller cons, and I even set up. I self-published the first issue of a comic there.
Okay.
So I was in Artist Alley trying to get people to buy my stuff, but I was trying not to be like please buy my comic. You know, I was trying to just like, hey, how's it going? Having fun, and you know, but you know, one of the things I was hoping is that, I mean, obviously, you know, there's like all the comic creators and all the big names. You're like, oh, maybe we'll see them in the hotel or, you know, get to hang out with them. Like that did not happen. But like, you know, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to hang out with some people in person, you know, outside of the rooms of the show, you know, this year. So
that's one of the biggest parts. I've said this before, but part of some of my favorite memories from last year were at the hotel, the Holiday Inn that a lot of us or the Days Inn, sorry, that a lot of us stayed at. Just, you know, walking into that hotel like at like 12:30 at night on the Thursday that we did intern and seeing like Wyatt and Joe and Eric and everyone sitting in the lobby talking and just being like, I'm so beat, but I can't go to bed right now. And I mean, we were up, I was like 1:30 in the morning. I'm an early riser. Which means I go to bed at like 8:30 at night. Like after my show is done on Wednesdays, I'm like toast. And that entire weekend in New Jersey for LegionsCon, I was up till like 1:32 every single night, but I was still waking up at like 4:35 in the morning because I just had so much energy. I was so this year is going to be, I mean, it's going to be electric. We're super excited. So wanted to announce that tickets on sale for LegionsCon starting tomorrow, www.legionscon.com. Very excited. Curtis was asking about Intern for a Day. Yes, information about how people can toss their hat into the ring for Intern for a Day, that will be coming soon as well. So on that note, customizing. You mentioned customizing a few times. We've shown some of the stuff. You got into Legions. You got excited for the community. You went in deep. About how many Legions do you have right now, approximately?
Actual Legions and not stuff I just have with Legions, probably I think around 75. Now.
Okay. So 1 year and you're 75 deep, which is very, very, very typical. But you've taken that next leap as well, which is starting to customize, which is an awesome and horrible journey at the same time, because now you're part of the group that when a new wave comes out, you don't sit there and go, okay, I want every single one of these. They're all cool. Now you get to look at it and go, oh, I need 3 of these because of those parts, or I need this. And welcome to the battle. So you are now customizing. Talk a little bit about that journey and how you got into being a customizer.
Sure. Like I said, I did stuff with some Marvel Legends because I'm like, they're probably never going to make this figure. Like I did the X Factor Jean Grey, the red and yellow, because that's what she was in when I started reading comics. I'm like, I want that. So I did that, and like I said, some of the Star Wars stuff with Legions. I saw, like I said, before I went to the con, I saw Douglas was telling me about some of the three third-party part stores, and I was looking at stuff, and I was like, oh, that would make a really cool character. And I just started like getting little pieces here and there, and I actually kind of sat on a lot of the parts I got at LegionsCon, which I didn't. I spent so much on the actual Mythics, I didn't buy as many of the custom pieces as I would have liked to. So when I went to ZoloCon, I was able to get a lot more, and then a couple times through the shops and stuff. Last year, I'll get through this real quick. I was diagnosed with a trauma presenting as PTSD and anxiety and stuff. And I have just started on some medication earlier this year, very mild antidepressant. And between that and counseling, and actually I wanted to do the customizing. And I was talking to my counselor about that, and she's like, well, we think you need to maybe start this medication. So I started that. And as within the first week or two, I mean, it takes about a month for that stuff to balance out. I was like, I really want to do these Mythic Legions, but all my paints were put away. I didn't feel like getting them out. Weekends, I would just sit around and just watch TV and sleep. I'm like, I want to make this stuff, but I couldn't make myself do it. So I actually started working on a diorama before I really started doing my customs, other than putting the Kitsune head on the Ragna and a couple little things here and there. And then once I started, it was just like the dam broke, and now it's just like, all right, I'm going to start, going to the flea market shop I go to and look for other parts I can like take apart. And then I saw your videos. We were talking about taking apart Marvel Select or different things. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like other people are doing the same thing. Like I'm not crazy. And, it was just like adding pieces here and there. And then I finally got my paints out. And now my desk where I'm sitting, all my paints are laid out in front of me. And I'll come home and I'll just start working on a little bit here and there. I'm not a very patient customizer. So I've got like 5 or 6 things going at the same time.
Did that for years.
So I give them time to dry and not just go over it and like rub off the paint I just put on,
Been there. Been there.
So yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And once I really started doing that, and even if I'm posting them in the Cabal and no one was looking at them, like that's a fun part of it. Cause like, oh, cool. People are seeing this and they're reacting to it and they're getting inspired. Cause just like I was inspired by things other people did. And it's just a cool give and take circle of life of the community. And it just keeps feeding my ideas like, oh, well, what if I did this with this piece and I'll paint it that way or whatever. And it's been so much fun.
That's great. I mean, first off, thank you for being so candid and for sharing that. It's to get serious for a moment. It's oftentimes, especially for men, it's considered not okay to express the fact that you maybe needed some help. You were challenged. So thank you very much for sharing that. And it sounds like finding this outlet for your creativity has kind of helped you manage some of the challenges you were dealing with.
Yeah, it's giving me something to focus on outside of just what I'm feeling. So like I said, the counseling helps. It's a little bit of everything. And it's different for everybody. Everybody's got brain chemistry is different, and everybody reacts different to different things depending on what they are. But for me, it's a nice balance of the counseling. Like I said, it's a very mild medication, and this giving me something to focus on that still feels creative and of my own inspiration, but not like we were saying about making a Marvel character, a Star Wars character, unless you're making up your own stuff. Yeah, they're going to make it or whatever. But like you said, with these, there's limitless possibilities. They're Lord Steven. I told myself I'd never call him that live, but I just did. I don't know why. I always go not canon if it's something too out of the mythos realm. But whatever works for everybody is really cool. And Yeah, yeah. I was going to go off on a
Okay.
tangent there, but I'll dial
Well,
it
no,
back.
again, I appreciate your candid story. So talking about customs, I've shown a few of them already. Let me bring
Yeah.
up another one here. So this is one that I saw recently that you sent me that I thought was super, super cool. Now, obviously, I know this head is from Wolf King Customs. I've
Hmm.
painted this head myself. Tons of fun to work on this. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about this custom here.
I got that at ZoloCon because I was like, I want to have a different head on my skeletons because I love the idea of the congregation of Necronominus having soldiers and beings and creatures from all the different races and as many different unique hodgepodge of everything. So I knew I'm not super big into the Mercurian, right? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, the
The
Spartan looking
gladiator characters. I
character.
mean, they look cool. Um, they're awesome figures. They're just not. They don't speak to me as much as some of the other ones. But I was like, I get that plume helmet, and I had no idea when I started it. I painted the head, and I was like, all right, what can I do with the body? So I didn't have a plan other than just to paint it up. And I was like, I think that's my army painter weapons bronze. Was what I used on the helmet, and then I just started, and it's just a skeleton builder from the reinforcement wave. And the pauldron I think was who was that? I don't remember who that's from. I didn't do anything to the pauldron. That was an as is part.
Yep. So
yeah, and then just
so you mentioned this was a skeleton legion builder. I mean, wonderful bases to use for stuff like this. Because I mean, you look at this, and this has so much paint applications on it. You would never know that this started with that single color armor. And as a customizer, forget about the lower price point, which is nice, but that single base color, I mean, it makes our jobs easier to be able to do this with it. That's super impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like the paints go on those, especially the Legion builders, like really nice on that dark base. Yeah, it was great.
So we got a
Okay,
question here, and I'll ask you this as well. So Star is saying, does anyone wash their figures before they customize? Is there any film or residue on the figures from the factory that might be problematic for paint? I do not wash my figures, but I know there's a lot of customizers that actually do wash third-party parts. I don't do that either. And I have a very specific reason why I don't, and it's because I'm lazy and I like to go fast. I have only so much time to customize, and if I'm cleaning my toys before I customize them, that takes time. But silliness aside, Jesse, do you clean any of your figures or parts before you start?
I don't. I mean I haven't, except for I did the Rit die last week or the week before for the first time. I did watch that just to try to help. I took a Sir Owain, dyed it with red to make my own Vorgus, and I thought I think I poured some. I think someone told me to use some sort of rubbing alcohol or something. I was like, I don't have that. I have some peroxide. So I did a quick wash and some peroxide on them, and then soap and water, and then just dropped it right in the pot. But normally I don't, unless there's a really strong smell. I got a NECA figure at Ollie's a while back, and it just smelled so bad. I soaked it in a bottle of like scalding hot water and dish soap for like 3 hours. And I just threw the figure away because the smell, I'm very sensitive to smells. I can't deal with it, and I just threw it in the dumpster.
Wow. So it's interesting. So we've got, you and I are both saying, yeah, we don't wash our figures. Curtis Ackerman is saying he's never washed one. But then we have other people, Mindless Focus, Braku Prime, that they are saying that they wash everything before painting. So to me, that is further proof of something I always say, that there's no one way to do this. I do my tutorials, I give people my tips, But I say all the time, I've had challenges where people ask me how to do something and I tell them what works for me. And they're like, oh, well, I tried it and it didn't work. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then they tell me, oh, but I couldn't do this one part of it. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. If you don't do exactly what I did, or even if you do exactly what I did and the conditions you're doing it in are different, you might get different results. So
Yeah.
a big part of customizing is figuring out what works for you with your set of variables.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I did the miniature D&D miniature painting, and those, the guy that was teaching me when I got into it a couple years ago, he's like, well, I prime everything. I was like, oh, well, I'm painting this like really crappy $1.50 bargain bin one. I'm just going straight to paint with it,
Yeah.
Like I took his advice on like the techniques and like the way you do the layers and the effects and stuff, but like I was like, nah, I'm just gonna paint this white thing and figure it out. And that's, with all of these, it's been a process of, I'm gesturing. I've got a bunch of the customs sitting around me here.
Yeah.
It's just trial and error. It's like I did something once, I'm like, well, that didn't work, let's see if I can fix that and try again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. You said earlier about when we brought up the dwarf custom, and you said, "Oh, I've swapped out the loin piece." That's part of it. Somebody else was talking about that they were customizing something and they had to redo the eyes multiple times. That's all part of the journey. That's all part of the process. It's one of the reasons why I. It's just my opinion, but I always tell people, look, when you're going to get started, don't start with like a dwarf head. Don't start with a human head. They're hard. Don't start with something you have to paint match. All of that stuff is really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts out there that are going to be so much more forgiving, that will just allow you to start to learn how to use the paints and how the materials take paint and what some of the most basic techniques you can use are. There are plenty of people that start with one of those more complex projects and, nail it. They just do a great job out of, right away. But I hate to see people get discouraged. Hate to see people start and feel like, nope, I was right. This is beyond me. Because realistically, I don't know if you agree with me, if you've learned this yet, but there's only a handful of techniques. There's a handful of different things you do in customizing that you do over and over. You do them in different configurations, you mix and match them, and those taken in different ways produce an incredible variety of end results.
Yeah. It's like Taco Bell. It's like the same 8 ingredients. You just mix them up in a different way, add one different thing, and it's like, oh, you got a whole different thing here.
It's like Taco Bell, he says. Yes, I will. Customizing is like Taco Bell. Okay, I like that. All right, so let's talk about legions in general. So,
sure,
you've got 75 legions currently, so you're not a completist, which is a smart thing. Smart guy. What are your favorite kinds of legions? Like, what factions or what races do you tend to gravitate towards?
I definitely like the hero, like the good side. I think it was Sean or someone pointed out years ago, they're like, if you don't have someone to root for in a movie or a story, like talking to me, they're like, you have a hard time getting into it. I'm like, that is 100% right. I had never thought about it that way. So all of this started with Thistlethorn. I just thought he was cool. So, and then I put in on Big Bad a pre-order for some of the Xylona's flock from the Alithia wave. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I'll get Shadow Equidron and some skeletons. And then like I started building the story of like photography I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I'm very amateur photography. But I was like, oh, I'll do this. I'll go out into this one park that's nearby and like get in the trees and do stuff. And I haven't done it yet. Because now I keep getting figures and I'm customizing and the story is getting bigger and bigger. But
sorry, I just had to bring that up while you're talking.
That's awesome. But yeah, so I know there are very dwindling race in the lore, but I think the fuzz monks are my favorite.
Fuzz monks, okay.
Yeah, I've done one custom. I started on another one last night. I'm gonna probably get a couple more Mephitors to make some more. And yep, there's Dewberry, as I named her.
Dewberry.
Yeah, because I thought it'd be. I think I got the idea when I saw. Was it Eric? Was it Eric Voorhees? I think did for the pop and swap. He put the black Mephitor head on a female goblin or a torso with the goblin legs, and I was like,
yep.
I think it was him. I apologize if if that's the wrong guy. Okay.
No, it was. Like, I believe
okay.
I call him Zombie. Like,
oh, right.
If you call him Eric, like if you actually call him Eric, he's like surprised. He's like, "Who's Eric? Oh, you mean me?" Yeah, everyone calls him Zombie. So I had to think for a minute who you were referring to.
All right, so Zombie. I saw Zombie's post, and I was like, "Oh, I almost got to that in my head. I was trying to figure out how to do that." And I was like, well, I have the skeleton 2 body, you know, and so yeah, I got another Mephitor with the skeleton 2 torso and put Dewberry together with Dorina's sword and and I wanted to paint her in similar colors to Thistlethorns, but I wanted it to be a little brighter, a little more. I figure with him being like the archivist and the lore master and all that, like he's not as upkeeping of his uniform. You know,
he's so focused
he has
on
to have
job
it.
That, his appearance goes by the wayside.
He has to have it, and he just doesn't upkeep it as much. He's distracted by his books and all that stuff. But yeah, she was a lot of fun. And yeah, I really like painting that head. Which is why I really wanted to try another one that I just started last night.
It looks great, and I love when I tell people that Thistlethorn is a goblin because they're like, "What do you mean?" Because when you think goblins, you think what we call cavern goblins. I also often refer to them as true goblins, but cavern goblin is actually the canon name in Mythic Legions. But the green-skinned, long ears. So to see one of these forest goblins, or as you referred to it, a fuzz monk, I think it's super cool. I like the fact that Mythic Legions takes these iconic races and provides little sub races for them and stuff. Fury Clan is obviously one of my favorite little sub races, but little things like that are a lot of fun. And you mentioned the Xylonus flock. I know you're into the critter characters. You've supported Legion Shop and Wolf King with your purchase of some of my critters, so thank you very much. I love those woodland type characters as well. All the Fae and Elven type characters. I think those are super, super cool. I know I certainly can't wait for the Alithia wave to arrive. In large part, I hear a lot of people talking about that wave because they're super excited for the vampires. I'm actually excited for all of the heroic characters in that wave even more than the vampires.
I'm with you there. Like the vampires are cool, but in the world I'm building with the figures I'm getting, I'm not going to get as many of the vampires. Like I'm trying to get the Dark 4, and a couple of like lieutenants or agents to go with each of them. But the main army is going to be for my villains is the Necronominus, the congregation. There's a book series called The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. It's what the Disney animated movie The Black Cauldron is inspired by. They kind of mesh up the first 2 books, and they are my favorite books of all time. That's a whole nother story for another day. But in that story there, the Black Cauldron, the second book, the main bad guy, the Death Lord Aron, he has this giant black cauldron, and anyone that he puts into it, like they kill them, put them into this cauldron, and they come back as the Cauldron Born, and they're basically like somewhere between zombies and skeletons. And as a kid in middle school, when I was reading that book, I actually couldn't read the book the first time. It scared me so bad. I was pretty sheltered. And it freaked me out so much. But a year or so later, I went back, tried it, and I loved it. And just that concept of anyone that dies, even if it's your best friend, who's a good guy, could get made into the Cauldron Born. And then I read, was it Pixis?
Yep.
His bio? Or no, is it Hagnon?
Hagnon is the ghost, that he was a heroic character,
right,
who basically, as retribution for him standing against her, Morgulith killed him and then resurrected him as that spirit.
Yeah, and that I was like, oh, that's good. And actually, Matt Duch actually is the one who told me that, because I didn't even know Hagnon was a figure at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a really cool idea. So he knows about the lore now. Like he's getting more into it. And then I started reading all the bios. And I'm like, oh, well, I got to get a Morgulith, because I had Mandibulus and
Malleus. Yeah.
Malleus. I got them at LegionsCon, and so their bios were a rabbit hole of like, oh, I got to get them because they connect to this, and So yeah, so the skeletons are the congregation's my main enemy faction. I love the goblins and orcs. They're just, those are probably the three I like the bigger, getting like the bigger Legion building out of.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take a little segue real quick, because we've got Bill Mancuso is in the audience tonight. So if you checked out the early show, the 4 Horsemen o'clock or 4-ish o'clock on the 4 Horsemen YouTube channel, Bill was on that show today, and they did him dirty. I got to tell you, Bill is one of the most interesting dudes. He's got an incredible history of work he's done in the toy industry, and they barely scratched the surface. So Bill, I'm going to have you on my show probably in the next couple weeks. We'll figure something out. We'll have you on here. We'll ask you the hard-hitting questions, and maybe we'll give people some fun reveals that they'll want to see, and maybe we'll show them some stuff that you are uniquely positioned to show them. So check it out. It is worth seeing, but they did my friend Bill dirty. Yes, Chris ambushed me 20 minutes before the show, Bill said. That makes sense, Bill, because about an hour and a half before the show, I was on a call with him, and he said to me, do you have any ideas for the show today? And I didn't have any ideas, so apparently Bill became the idea.
I'm always at work, so I caught a little bit of one or two of them after the fact. But Wednesdays at 4:30 is when I transition from my one job to my other job. So it's hard to.
Right. Yeah, that's right as it's closing.
Yeah.
It's a fun show. It's got some wackiness in it for sure. But that was a little tangent there. Excuse me.
No, that's fine.
So understanding that Necronominus is going to be your main wave, and not for nothing, as the director of sales and marketing for 4 Horsemen Studios, I love it when people are like, I'm all in all the time. I'm going to get extras. Trust me, I love that. But the realist in me totally respects the way you're collecting, where you're, picking and choosing. You're trying to get key representatives from different factions, so you have a nice, well-rounded collection. But that also allows you to go deeper into, the factions and the races that you like the most. So that being said, you must be super excited for what's lining up for the end of this year with the upcoming Horseman wave.
I'm like with a lot of the movies and shows and things that are coming out that I'm excited for, I try to only take with any real certainty the things that come from the official sources.
Yeah.
So unless you or like Cornboy with his drops last night on Legion's Lair, with whatever that was alluding to, I mean, it's stuff we kind of in the community have been talking about and is speculating, but I try not to lean too hard into, well, this is a thing.
Okay.
And that's the thing I'm trying to do as a member of the Cabal is if I see people posting stuff, I'm like, oh, hey, Source Horseman has this info about that exact thing. We don't need to spin our wheels getting all excited and worked up when they have the information right there. So, and I keep finding more and more stuff on that site that is like, oh, wow, like I didn't know the weapons thing was its own thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
The armory. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
like,
tried. There was a hot minute where I was going to do that same thing for all the body parts, where I was going to say, like, okay, these feet are available with all of these characters, and this torso is with all these. And I started doing it, and I got distracted by other projects, but it also became just such a monstrous undertaking to try to do that I was
yeah.
just like, you know what? I don't know that I can commit this. It's still on my list of things I'd like to do as a resource, but it is a heavy, heavy project. Dude, just keeping the armory updated is heavy enough.
Yeah, I bet that like my brain is starting to itch just trying to think about which ones came with which, and if there was like a slightly different version that was in a later wave or whatever, that's
yeah.
There's like cataloging your Lego pieces.
That's very much what it is. Yes.
Which oddly, Legos takes me back to I started customizing back when I was playing with Legos.
Sure.
When I found out you could pop their arms off, because I never liked the knights I had. I was like, I don't like these colors. Especially when I'm like, I want a knight that's green. So I take apart my like Robin Hood woodsman characters and make knights out of them. And I was like, when I tried explaining Mythics to people who had no idea, I was like, you know how Legos, right? Like, yeah, it's like that, but way cooler.
Yep. And I use that same analogy. I've mentioned that to people where I talk about, and the thing that's interesting is Legos are a building kit. So, Legos come disassembled. So trying to explain to people that they don't come disassembled, you have to put them together. They come fully assembled, but they've got parts that are removable, heads and shoulder armor and stuff. But then the parts that are intact, like arms and legs, those can pop apart as well. You can combine them with others. I mean, even just showing someone that blown up picture of, I did one that's a Templar and a Goblin side by side that I blew them apart so you could see all the component parts. I mean, even just showing somebody that kind of makes them say like, oh, I see how you could mix and match this type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Jim or one of the other guys at the table at ZoloCon. They were like, hand me a figure, and I think he just pulled something out of a box and was showing a person at the con who didn't know what Mythics was, but like the way you guys were set up right in that door was great. Like,
yeah, I was doing that,
and
I was doing that.
And then I saw that guy. Okay. I was gonna say, and then I saw that guy join the Cabal like a day or two later and talking about how someone was showing him. I was like, oh, you were the guy. I was just telling someone about that. That was really cool to see that happen, in person.
Yeah, I was doing that. That's part of the role I like to play at the shows is, greeting both fans like yourself who I know and greeting people who are just like, I don't know what this is, but there's this crazy long line. So there's got to be something cool going on. What is it? And being able to pop out, I had a Malleus at ZoloCon and pull the pieces off and, slapping the head off. I did that both at ZoloCon and at ToyCon as well.
He's in the chat.
Yeah, he was there as well. Okay, so other stuff that you're excited for. I know you're into the skeletons and all that. What fantasy races, what types of characters haven't we seen in Mythic Legions yet that are on your kind of short list of things you'd love to see?
Funny you should say short list. Halflings.
Halflings, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know with the gnome pieces you guys are doing that you kind of get there, but yeah, halflings. I'm no pun intended. I'm a big fan of the underdog story. So like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
You know, especially the end of that movie when Aragorn, like they go to bow and he's like, my friend, like every time I can't even say it. It gets me worked up. So that's why I like the Zylonis flock. You've got like these all these different things in my mind. They're kind of like the last bastion in the way I'm buying them
Mm-hmm.
against all of this evil that's coming in, and you know, how are they going to get it through it, and you know, all that stuff. So yeah, halflings would be really cool. I don't know, race wise, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm pretty happy with everything, but yeah, halflings would be cool to have that slightly smaller than a dwarf.
Yep.
And you know, the big feet and everything. Um, I would like to see more. Try to word this right. I don't mean this in any offensive way. Like more like bulky, jacked female characters.
Okay.
Like when you see the Amazons in the Wonder Woman movies.
Yep.
And I don't even mean like scantily clad, but just like
No, I know what you mean.
one
Yep.
that could go toe to toe with like one of the ogre scale figures. You know,
Yep.
just kind of that bulky, massive look. I think would be really cool.
Kind of like what we did with Vorga in the Cosmic Legion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'd love to also see on that similar note, and I mean, this is not breaking any ground. A lot of people have asked for this. Characters that have just like thicker type bodies. You know, we've got the Magnus torso, which has become one of my favorites just because it's got more heft to it. You put that on a dwarf and it just works so well. But like I've used the fat kind of dwarf body that Sabadom from Planetary Dog Toys did. I mean, it's a great piece. It's a great piece. It totally creates a very distinct type of character. So yeah, I'd love to see bigger characters like that, similar to like what you're talking about with the, more built, thicker type females.
Yeah. I just to think, you know, like I said, I love the female characters we have. I've got a Freya and Cassia, who is becoming a custom of once I get my parts from Planetary in, and different things. But like, yeah, it's just something that's got a little more like, you know, Ivan Drago. I must break you.
Yeah.
I'm not big on the barbarian. I forgot my first barbarian. Thanks to Sven, hooked me up because I missed him on Saturday at Zolo, and he went back, and I was like, "Hey, if you go," so he hooked me up and grabbed me one. So I have a barbarian builder, and he's awesome. But Sean, that's like his favorite. Like,
Yep.
he'll buy those all day if he could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, literally same thing with Steven, where, I think they both. So I've talked about this with Steven so many times, but he's a He-Man guy. And I don't just mean Master Universe, I mean He-Man. Like he loves that barbarian type character. And I've told the story that the first toy I can remember buying in a store wasn't the first toy I ever had, but the first one that I actually have a memory of walking into the store and buying was Skeletor. And I guarantee you that when I walked in, they had He-Man and Man-at-Arms and on Stratos and everything. And I was like, I want that blue dude with a skeleton face because that's cool. And all the characters, all the toys I liked the most growing up were all the villains. They all had masks or skulls in this case. So it's funny that I joke about this with Steven all the time, and it's probably similar to Sean, where that barbarian type character, that He-Man-esque character, that's what speaks to them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's and yeah, where like I said with the animals and stuff, like in watching He-Man as a kid, Cringer, Orko, and Tila were the characters I was drawn to the most. And like if it was a talking animal or a more childlike character when I was a kid, that's what I wanted. I didn't buy He-Man, no offense, because He-Man and Adam looked exactly the same. He just had pink or no shirt on. And it's like, how is he supposed to be like a kid? Like, I want a kid in the show. So I
We
think that's
actually have
why.
Sean in the chat here where he says,
Yeah.
what can I say? I'm a meat and potatoes dude.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Uh,
So you are a fan of the animal type characters. Did you ever, like, prior to all the Legion stuff, had you never been introduced to some of the Horsemen's earlier work with like Seventh Kingdom, where they did a lot of the anthropomorphic characters?
I missed out on all of that. I don't know how, like, if it was just the shops I was at. Just I'm a kind of guy that, like, unless something just kind of like plops into my lap, I don't normally go looking for stuff unless someone maybe recommends.
Yeah.
And I think during the time when those were coming out, I wasn't as in the community of that sort of stuff. There were very specific things I was looking for.
Yep.
And yeah, I just missed out on all of them. So when I joined the Cabal and I was looking up, I was like, oh man, those things are great. And I saw a couple at ZoloCon that I was like, I looked at one that was with a green, like,
The Green Mutant.
somewhere like the bug lizard looking guy.
Okay.
I think someone had it over by almost near where the Gerard figure was.
Yep. Okay.
I looked at it, I was like, oh man, that thing's they had a decent price on it, I think. I was like, oh, I could get one of that. That would, and I don't think I quite knew what it was yet.
Yeah,
and then I looked over at something else or said something to Sean. And I looked back and it was gone. I was like, well, all right, I guess I'm not getting that one. But yeah, looking those up, I see, the birds. Everybody talks about the birds. And I'm like, I got a Nemesis.
Okay.
So I've got him. But yeah, I don't have any of the other birds or any of and I see them and I'm just like, man, those are really cool. I can't believe I missed out on those, but yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, that bird wave, that was the resurgence because, you mentioned Spawn earlier. That's where I started with Four Horsemen Studios back in the Spawn days. So when they opened up Four Horsemen Studios, I was already well aware of them and their work. I voted on those early Fantastic exclusives, and I bought like the figures that I have in my case from Seventh Kingdom. They're originals. Like they're not ones I've hunted down. They're ones that I bought years ago when they first came out. But it's interesting because, like you, there was a period where I slowed down on some of my collecting a bit. And then what really got me excited again was when they did the Kickstarter for the Gothotropolis Ravens for those birds. And it's funny looking at them now because if you know the history, they did the Kickstarter, very successful. Once the figure shipped, there was a feeding frenzy. Like these things were selling for crazy $300 a piece. So they did. And by the time those shipped, Mythic Legions was now a thing. So that's when they did the Avian All-Stars, where 6 of the most popular birds they reissued, and they did the whole second wave of them, the Etheron's Dozen. A lot of those birds, they actually hit clearance. I know that when we think about Legions now, the idea of them not selling and them hitting clearance is unfathomable. But I remember there was a point that those birds, they were trying to blow them out. And now trying to find any of those is terribly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a rabbit hole for the while. I'm like, I'll put that stuff towards the new stuff coming out. But yeah, they're awesome looking. And I'm like, I don't know how I just didn't know about them. Like, I didn't know about the name Four Horsemen as the toy company until several years ago when Sean was talking about the 2000X stuff. And now, like I said, I came across Thistlethorn while I was browsing Big Bad one day. I was like, oh, I'll get one of those. And then, the day I decided to get it, I got my tax return or something last year. It was gone on Big Bad.
Oh.
And then, so I went to eBay and I had to pay like the double the Big Bad price because I was like, I have to have him. He's the only one I'm going to get.
He's the one I want. Yeah.
Whoops.
So do you have the other Do you have the other Legions critters? So let's see. That would be. Do you have Borear?
I do have a Borear.
Okay. I assume you have. Do you have all the cats?
I don't have any. Oh no. I have Purplor. I
So you
have
have
purple.
purple. Okay, so you don't
Yep.
have Kalaros and Balam.
No.
Okay. Trying to think what other are those all of the actual critters?
The Taurian. I don't have.
Oh, yep, that's right. The Minotaurs.
I don't have Asterion. I might get another Taurian at some point and customize him, or hold out. Maybe he'll come back around, or another Minotaur will come around that I can customize.
Sure.
Let's see. Yeah, Methtor.
Yeah, 'cause
Faunus. I guess he's more tree, but have him.
Yeah.
Krampus.
So Krampus he's I guess critter like. He's got
he's
animal
and
like
figure obscura. He's not specifically.
Yeah, but they're so I mean, it uses all mythic parts, so
Yeah. I'm looking around at my shelves.
I know I'm looking too, and I'm like, is there any other animals? I mean, I see tons of critters here, but I'm like, no, that's
Yeah.
Oh, how about Xylona? Do you have Xylona?
I don't. I saw her at ToyCon. I just with the other figures I bought, and I didn't quite get who she was yet.
Yeah.
I didn't get her, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. There's obviously I'm not asking you to reveal anything. I'm hoping that the four get their own waves or get re-released in some way, because I know what she and is it Aetheron or Ethereum are the only two that have been released, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
For the four beasts. There's a part of me that hopes to get like a brute or ogre scale version of them, because you got the horsemen, like the dark four have their horses, so they're bigger that way. And I'm like, it'd be cool to see the gods as bigger figures. But that's just where my mind is at with it. So
we've gotten Etheron, which is obviously a figure that a lot of people are trying to hunt down now because of the fact that he's such a major character. And even Xylona. I mean, at one point, Xylona was super easy to find. Now trying to hunt one of her down, very, very difficult. And you're right, we haven't seen the last two, Basilia and Leodicius. Those two we haven't seen in figure form yet. So who knows what the future will hold? We'll have to see. Have to wait and see.
I'm very much. I'm not a patient painter. I am totally patient for this stuff. Like it'll come out when it comes out. It's like I said with the movies and shows. Like I'll wait till they officially put something out. It'll be fun to speculate with friends and stuff, but I'm not going to get myself worked up for that.
So, Cosmic Legions, are you going down that rabbit hole as well, or are you staying with Mythic only?
I've decided that I'll go down that hole if and when I see them at shows. Just because I know those are going to take off. Because I know sci-fi is a much broader realm for a lot of just people in general. The sword and sorcery and the magic, that's always been a thing for me. So that's where my heart in this stuff really lies. I have a huge Star Wars Black Series collection. I do want to get some of the Cosmic. I think some of them are really cool. The designs are awesome, but it comes down to just where am I putting my money?
Sure.
And I'll be honest, I'd rather get 2 or 3 more skeletons or a couple more orcs. So unfortunately, I did not do the all-in or anything on the Grave Knight. I almost did.
Well,
but yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, you do have an advantage. Being East Coast, being in Pennsylvania, you can get to ZoloCon, you can get to ToyCon and LegionsCon, and look, we've heard people outside of the East Coast ask, hey, we wish you would come do other shows. I've spoken in the past about some of the challenges of doing that. I don't know if everyone realizes that when we do those local shows, we literally drive an RV to them. We load up an RV with product and we drive it to the show. Because the cost of getting, when they see that table at ZoloCon, when you walked in, you went to Zolo and you saw all that product. It's incredibly impressive, right? You're like, oh my goodness, look at all this. People see those photos and they're like, why can't you come to, my neck of the woods and do that? And the logistics of trying to get all that there is what's a challenge. But we are looking into ways that we may be able to do that. We will be at PowerCon this year. Are you going to PowerCon?
I was talking about going with Sean and Matt, but I think once LegionsCon got announced, so I don't know. It's a 6-hour drive. LegionsCon's only 3 hours, so it's up in the air. Trying to, like I said, just get some finances stabilized and stuff. I want to, whether I do or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll be at Power. Obviously, we'll be at LegionsCon, but we'll be at PowerCon, so that'll be cool. That'll be something that's, it's Ohio, so it's a little bit different than the East Coast. But yeah, I mean, being where you are, there's definitely an advantage to being able to say, you know what, I'll wait, and when I see these at a show, I'll try to pick them up there.
Yeah,
I will make.
If I really want them, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said I will make a prediction. When you do come to a show and you see them, you're going to buy one because
I know I will.
I
will. Because I do that with every figure. Like I finally got a Malphar. I got a decent trade with. I'm drawing a blank on the name. Not a trade. I put up a sale a while back, and I got a Malphar and a Thwick. My last named goblin I needed. So I have all the named goblins, I think. And Malphar, I'm like, and I got him out of the box, and I was like, I knew I was gonna like him more than I thought I would just looking at him. I'm like, he's great, Yeah. He's a nice blue to contrast.
I love
Airthier and Aethia. And Thwick is awesome. Like he's fun, but yeah, Malphar, I was not expecting to like him as much as I did.
Right, he's cool.
He's very cool. Just that the head makes and the small hooves make a completely different vibe. It's great.
Now, I remember the show that I actually opened up Aerith. Someone, I mean, if you go back and watch me do it, it's funny because it's a super pure reaction where I opened up Malphar and I put his wings on him, his little wings, and someone said, "Hey, how do the big wings look on Malphar?" Because the large blue wings are literally the exact same color. So I popped them on and I was like live on the air. I was like, that looks so good. And that is literally, I have 2 of them on display, but that's how I have my main Malphar with the horned head with the big giant wings. Because the wings are so oversized on them that it works so well.
That's great. That's awesome.
So Joe Vassapolo's in the chat. Joe is pointing out that we will be in Connecticut next. That is correct. So next month, June 11th, Four Horsemen Studios, we will be doing a show in Connecticut. It's called Shop the Curiosity. It is first time for the show, so we don't know a whole lot about it. All of the information is on sourcehorseman.com. So that'll be the next place that we are at. I know a lot of people ask what we're going to have at the show. We never reveal what we're going to have there, specifically so we don't say we're going to have X and then people show up and it's sold out and they're disappointed. But I will tell you that it will be similar stuff to what we've had at the last few shows. So if you came to Zolo, if you came to, ToyCon in March, similar type of stuff that we'll be drawing from.
Very cool.
So, Jesse, we're getting towards the end of the day. I know I'm looking at the customs that we have here. One that I didn't show that I thought was super, super cool was this character here. This is like you were mentioning Minotaurs earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So I assume this was a Taurian that you started with?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's basically just Baron Voligar with the Taurian neck and head.
Yep.
Added some purple accents to the armor there, on top of what was already there. because I didn't know what to do with the other Torian head, and like the Baron Voligar figure, I grabbed it just on a whim at ZoloCon. I'm like, I don't have another tabarded body. Like, I'll grab it just to have it. Again, I wasn't going into the vampires that hard. And I was looking around, I'm like, you know what? A vampire Minotaur would be fun and just kind of wacky. So I just got the brushes out, went to town on the head and the horns and everything. I might add a little bit more, but I tried to make his lips look like they had like a blood stain on there a little bit. But yeah, that was fun.
What do you so what do you use for paints and stuff? Do you have it's probably the most common question that I get from people is what I use for materials. Do you have a preference in terms of paints and brushes and all that good stuff?
I don't. I did just get, because I work in a comic shop and we get some paint supplies. We don't have a lot of stuff. The stuff we get is the Army Painter war paints in the store. And I actually just got a couple weeks ago, and I just used them the other day for the first time. The D&D brand like 3-brush set.
Okay.
It's got a really nice detailed brush. Because my other brushes are mostly just like Walmart or like Michael's. Like they're pretty cheap. But most of my paints are like the Apple Barrel folk art stuff from Walmart. And then I have a decent selection of the war paints. I have some Citadel for like the more texture, like the Nuln Oil and Blood for the Blood God, the effect paints and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I have a Turbo Dork, which I haven't used yet, and the color shift from folk art's really nice. That kind of two-tone metallic colors, kind of like Turbo Dork. But yeah, I'm like, that color would mix well with this color, I think, and see what happens. And yeah.
Very cool. Well, like I said, most common question that I get, and it's amazing that how many different answers you get to that. You know, I always say that people, whatever they usually start with is what they end up having some brand loyalty to. But it sounds like you're one of the people, and I've met others as well, that's kind of like, you know what, I'm all over the place. I'll work with whatever I can get my hands on.
Yeah. Like the folk art, it's cheap. And again, I got a lot of this stuff because I was painting D&D minis, so I wasn't going like too elaborate with it. Now that I'm doing these, like with the Mythic customs and stuff, I feel like I might start investing in a little bit higher quality paints, maybe a little more Citadels than I have like in just actual color tones. But I feel like knowing it's more expensive, I might be less apt to just like mix it up with something else.
Sure.
With the folk art stuff, I can just like squirt, like
experiment more,
a tablespoon here and, all this stuff. My favorite trick though is there's not a lot to use on Mythics at this point, but transparent pieces or translucent pieces. I saw a video on someone making sea glass, like painting like soda bottles to look like sea glass. It's just Elmer's glue and food coloring. So the Elmer's glue dries clear. But then whatever food coloring, I mean, it's a little frosted, but like whatever food coloring so I was doing that with my D&D minis if they had like a torch or a spell effect. So you mix your color in and, hopefully it dries the same shade that you mixed it to be, but it's food coloring, so it's not exact. But yeah, that's
interesting.
Haven't gotten a chance to use it on any of my Mythics yet, but I do have a translucent sword with it's like the ice blue one, I think, from
Legion Shop.
From Legion Shop that I gave to Hagnon, because the only thing solid on Hagnon is his chains.
Yeah, his chains. I know. Yeah.
So I was like, he needs to have a spirit sword too.
Very cool. I like that.
So
that's cool. That's a really cool tip that you were able to share. I've never heard that one, so I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah, Curtis pointing out, we were talking about paints. He's saying So Flat for the win. So Flat is the one that they use at the studio. Cameron and Sherry. It was interesting. Back last G-Con, they had mentioned they use So Flat, and I know a bunch of people went out and got it. Curtis is saying he loves it. I know Steven absolutely loves it. Joe, who's in the studio, offers a slightly different take where he says that So Flat doesn't have enough colors. I don't want to mix if I don't have to. Lazy. I agree, Joe. I like to avoid mixing only because if I have to recreate it, I'm so bad about remembering what colors and even more importantly, what quantities of those colors I use. So trying to recreate my mixed color tends to be very, very difficult. But
Yeah.
So Flat's another one I hear people are very excited about.
That's why I get these the little jars. That's my orc goblin skin
Yep.
tone in there. I don't know. It might have dried out by now. It's a couple weeks old.
So Joseph H, and I know you said this earlier, asking, do you only post on the Cabal? Do you also have Instagram? You do have an Instagram. Can you please remind them what the address was?
Handle? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
handle.
just shelve it with a period between the words. So it's just period shelve period it.
Just shelve it. Very cool. So Jesse, thank you very, very much for hanging out with me this evening. Don't go away just yet. After I shut down, we'll be in the green room. We were chatting before we went live, so we can continue that once we go off air. Anything that we didn't cover? Anything that you wanted to kind of leave the audience with?
Just a huge thank you for watching and for everyone who's posting stuff on the Cabal, your own creativity or any tips and pointers and stuff you've added to mine. Like, I really appreciate it. I love the interaction. Not just like in a selfish way, but just like having that group to hang out with and talk with is just it's so much fun. So yeah, just thanks to everybody for everything they bring to the Cabal and Mythic Legions.
I agree. And we haven't announced this yet, but we will be seeing more of your work because we are talking right now about bringing you on to Legion Shop. You're going to be doing some painted pieces for Legion Shop. So people that are admiring your work, they're going to have a chance to get some of it for their own soon.
That's awesome. Can't wait.
Very cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I will be back here next week. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel. Until then, I can't wait for that conversation. Have a good one, everyone.